Okay, this is a video response to Hans Rolling HIV TED Talk, and I thought it was really interesting. I like him as a speaker. He's very engaging, and his graphs are always really amazing because they are so in-depth. It's really cool how it shows so much information in those little bubbles, and like the size of the bubbles and everything also represents something. I thought it was really cool how he could break down the bubbles into like social class or like wealth. I thought that was really cool that he could break that up. I don't know what to say about AIDS. It's really sad that it's like so focused. Well, no, it's not sad, but it's just sad how high it is in Africa. Like what was it, over 50% of AIDS are just concentrated in Africa, and like the lower half. I also liked what he said, not just when talking about AIDS, but just in general, generalizing or stereotyping specific countries or cultures or populations as being a specific way when really maybe just part of the countries like that. Like how he was talking about Africa, how people say like Africa has this massive problem, but when you go up to the northern Africa, they don't have a problem with AIDS at all. It's just southern Africa. And I really like that he put it like it's naive and not very clever to like make conversation like that, because it's not true for all of Africa. It's just true for the southern part. I thought it was really interesting that it's not necessarily like peaceful versus war-stricken countries. That like there's a real trend. Like I don't remember what countries it was, but like peaceful countries had a higher, like some of the peaceful, well, one specific peaceful country had a higher HIV level than one of the wars. I think the Congo, which is like super corrupt and like really bad political stuff happening there, and they have a really low HIV count. But then you go up to like peaceful, I think it was like Zambia or something like that, have really high rates of HIV/AIDS. And I thought that was really interesting, because you'd think in like the war-stricken countries that they'd have more rape and more crime, and just like that things would just be like HIV would just be higher than in a peaceful country, but it wasn't that way. And I almost wonder if maybe that has something to do with taking into account the people that have AIDS, like, because he didn't really go in depth on how they calculated that, like how they found out what countries were high in AIDS and which ones weren't. Like, how do they take those numbers? Because it could, I wonder if like the lower ones do have higher rates of AIDS, but they're just not accounted for because the country's so messed up. Especially in like the war-stricken countries, I'm sure like people don't have money to go to the doctors, to order prescriptions, to do any of that stuff. So how would the government know if they did have AIDS or not? Whereas in a wealthier country, those people would probably be more aware of their health and be going to the doctors, getting medicine, whatever it is that they need, and that would be taken into account that they were HIV infected. So I just thought that was really interesting. And yeah, I definitely wonder, I would like to know how they've got the numbers that they did. Because I can imagine it would be really hard to track something like that in countries that are so disorganized or war-torn or whatever it is. Let's see, what else did I think about it? Also, he didn't really, like, I don't know, I thought the information was really good, but a lot of it was just unclear, like, what the information meant as much. Like, what I said earlier, how it was calculated, and also, like, what percentage of those HIV infected are dying, or, like, their level of suffering. I think that's another thing to take into consideration, because of if like some countries have a really high mortality rate with like the HIV infection versus another country who has maybe a really low concentration of HIV like death rate, but they have a lot more people who have HIV. I don't really know how AIDS and HIV works. Like if there's varying degrees. I know that it gets worse as the longer you have it, but I just don't know like if there's some kinds that are worse than others right from the beginning. So that'd be another thing that would be like that made me want to like question like what it meant. But yeah, it was an interesting video. I like his like lecture style, and he's funny and interesting and intriguing. Obviously, it made me ask lots of questions, but overall, it's nice that. Oh, what else did he say? One more thing I really like that he said. Oh, it was such a good line, but it was something along the lines of like, it's not getting better, but it's not getting worse, but it's not getting better. Like we're staying stagnant with our numbers of HIV. So they're not increasing, but they're not going down either, which I just think is really interesting. And on the one hand, it's like great that they're not going up, but it's also sad that they're not going down either, but at least they're not going up. And I was really surprised at how many people had it in the States, because you like never hear about it. I don't know if that's because people would stay quiet or whether it's just not in any of the areas I live in, because I always feel like I come from nicer parts of the country, and so maybe it's just in like really poverty stricken places. But yeah, anyways, okay, that's all. Bye.